A couple of things that we want to announce. There's a special email address that we set up for people to send in certain kinds of messages, and there's going to be a Discord server, like a platform for the patrons to communicate with one another on an ongoing basis. And we'll get into that in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for the purposes of clarity of all of this, for me as well as the audience, I want to ask you whether it seems to you, if my perception is correct, that the Glenn show recently has been becoming kind of more than what it used to be. It has been acquiring a new kind of quality with, like, when we started Patreon, there's a community started gathering. I've heard you and John talk about the like volume of messages that you're getting in the email, and that's the reason we set up that special email address that we're going to talk about in a little bit. Is that how recent is the change in the volume, or has it been huge for like the last years?
No, something is going on for sure. I think in this last year, since the summer of 2020, the murder of George Floyd, the protest, the rise of Black Lives Matter to an even higher degree of prominence, the global reaction to events in the United States, the sense of a reckoning, the election of Donald Trump and the subtext of racial themes that carried with it. I mean, there's a long list of stuff that one could point to here. The continuing negative and problematic encounters between people of color and police officers that create one after another of these viral incidents and so on. There's a heightened sense of, I think, concern about race-related questions, which had been the beat that John McWhorter and I, the black guys at Blogging Heads TV, had carved out for ourselves. So, I mean, you're the guy that keeps track of the metrics. My guess is that some of the episodes that John and I posted at the Glenn Show, where we entertained some of these questions and talked about them candidly and, critically, attracted extraordinary attention, 100,000 plus of views at YouTube and so on, much more so than our conversations had been attracting heretofore. So there's a heightened interest in the subject matter. Right. There's a distinctive voice, I think it could be said, that I am bringing and that John and I are bringing. We are not clones, John and I. John McWhorter speaks quite well for himself. He is my conversation partner on a regular basis at the Glenn Show. We talk more or less twice a month as a regular course of affairs. But we have a somewhat distinctive voice. It's a kind of contrarian voice. We're not saying what you would find on the cable news channels or on the pages of the national newspapers and magazines or in the websites that you associate with progressive reportage. We're cutting against the grain a little bit. People who watch the Glenn Show will know more specifically what I mean by that, but it has a character that I think many people, if I judge by the comments that are left at YouTube and at the Blogging Head site and at the Patreon page that we have, if I judge by the reactions of people in the comments, they are identifying something that's unique about the way in which we're talking about these issues, uniquely distinct from the, kind of acceptable, politically correct view. I mean, we cut against the grain. And I think that people are attracted by that. So, I mean, you asked me if there's been a change qualitatively in the nature of reaction to what we're offering at the Glenn Show, and I believe that that's the case. I don't have an exact count, but I can tell you that I could spend all of my time reading and reacting to email messages that I get to my personal account because I use my Brown University email for pretty much 100% of my email traffic. It looks like that's probably a mistake, you know, because I can't segregate. Of course, you have done, and you are going to explain greater length what you have done for the people communicating to us at Patreon to segregate some of those messages out. But there's a lot of stuff that's coming in. People are asking us for advice. People are basically spilling their guts. They're telling us their life stories. They are confessing to us or confirming for themselves that at least somebody can understand what it is that they're talking about. They just need to write the letter.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about hundreds of people because that's the volume of the incoming that I'm experiencing. And I think John McWhorter could similarly report. So there seems to be a hunger out there. You know, we're national treasures in some of these accounts. We are making it possible for people to go on with their daily lives. We're saving them from madness. They quite literally are saying,
I've seen that, yeah.
I would go mad, but for, you know, the relief that I get when I listen to you guys and so on. So, something, we're at a particular kind of cultural/political moment, it would appear, in the country here in the United States of America. And on the race questions, modestly, I want to say this modestly. I think that what I've been saying and writing, and what John McWhorter has been saying and writing, and again, I emphasize we are distinct personalities with our own respective views of these matters, has touched a nerve somewhere in the American and even beyond. I mean, we get correspondence from people in Europe and Australia and so on as well. It's touched a nerve out there somewhere, and I've felt a certain degree of satisfaction that we're so appreciated. Of course, there are many who don't appreciate us, but that's another question.
Yeah. Okay. So by way of sort of outlining the trajectory of where we are now and where we might be headed. So what we did, I heard a conversation between you and John where you said those things, similar things to the ones that you said just now. And I guess you just aired the idea right there in a conversation that maybe now that there's some money in the Patreon account, maybe you guys should hire somebody to sort through all of these messages, because even reading them is becoming difficult, let alone answering meaningfully, actually providing some advice if a person is asking for advice and things of that sort. And so what we decided to do as we're trying to figure out what to do with this is to set up a special email address, thework@glenshow.com, that would be used specifically for these kinds of messages that seem to require action on your part, or I suggested that we set up 4 kind of categories that people could label their message with. And those, if I can remember them: work, grow, info, and help. And those refer to work, like if somebody wants to offer some volunteer work, they would put the word work in the title. If somebody has ideas for how this project, the Glenn Show, and your overall enterprise can develop, they should use the word grow. If they need help, because you've been getting these messages where somebody's asking, like, I need a lawyer is what I need at this juncture, then they should put the word help in the subject line. And then if there's information that they want to share about what's happening at their place of employment or school they attend to or school their kids go to that is relevant to your beat, then they should put the word info in it. And we've gotten, so this is the first time we're mentioning this email address on the Glenn Show, but we put it out on Patreon and in your newsletter at Substack. And so those, not huge venues, but we've gotten quite a few messages. And I was looking at those messages, and it's at looking at, at the time of looking at these messages that when I realized that something, like I underestimated the scope of this thing. And by this thing, I mean, I guess both the Glenn show and the subjects that you're discussing.
Can I just interrupt for a moment,
Sure.
Nikita, because I want to just reiterate what you've said. The email address is thework@glennshow.com. And we ask that people use one of 4 code words in the title or the
Subject
information line, the subject line of their email: work, grow, help, or info. And those are pretty much self-explanatory. But it's a great help to us if people both direct their communications about the Glenn Show to that email address. And if they identify the rough subject that they are writing about with these code words: work, grow, info, and help. So I just wanted to reiterate that. You were saying.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, so we've gotten quite a few messages, and I was thinking of structuring this conversation around those messages. I certain themes seemed important, difficult to address, challenges to deal with to me, and so I wanted to bring some of those to your attention and hear your views on those. And I have some of these out here. Well, actually, before we go into that, another announcement is, since it is still the case that even though there is a special email address and there are fewer emails there, I suppose, than in your personal account, that's still a lot. And it's still a challenge to figure out how to, actually do something about the concerns that people send in. So the next step that we thought of is to set up a platform for people to connect with one another. And we decided we're going to launch a Discord server. Discord is an app that people can use to have group text chats and audio calls and video calls. And all of the patrons of the Glenn Show will have access to this place where they can talk to one another. And part of the reasoning behind that is some of the messages that came into the work at glennshow.com seem complementary to one another. So one person writes, "Could you point me to a good attorney?" And then another person writes and says, "I'm an attorney and I would be happy to help if somebody needs my help." So that is the kind of thing that really, if we just put these people together, they could help one another. That's part of it. And I guess another part of it is, it seemed to me, because as you're saying, some of these people write in and say they've been feeling alone, or like they're going crazy, or that something that's happening to them, they don't know if that's only happening to them or it's a part of a bigger trend. And so it seems that in just sharing their experiences with one another, getting to understand the situation in a broader scope than their particular locality, there can be a benefit too. So we're hoping that, we don't know how it's going to go, but we're hoping that this is going to be of help. So if you are a patron of the Glenn Show, you're going to have access to this Discord account. We're going to put instructions on the Patreon website. And I'll check in that place, and we'll see whether a productive conversation can be fostered there.
Let me underscore that the email portal that we previously discussed here is open to anyone who wants to communicate with us. But that this community that we're going to be creating at the Discord server that allows for interested parties to interact with each other will be accessible through our patreon.com/Glenn Show page to our patrons at either the $5 per month or the $10 per month tier.
That's correct. Right.